Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and I have got a Lord of Dreams special for you. No, not Sandman, not that guy. A whole new Kickstarter to talk about. It is the ultra talented, successful Kickstarter entrepreneur, writer, artist, creator. It's Mr. Billy Diamond Jr. Billy, how's it going?
Doing very well, man. I appreciate you having me on and giving me a chance to talk with you today.
You are more than welcome, indeed. I love a great Kickstarter. I had a chance to look through the book this afternoon, and I was like, "What? Where? What?"
Yeah.
So I've kind of alluded to a certain dreamscape. I think that's a pretty obvious thing to kind of lead with. So your book's called The Mugen Man. Have I pronounced it correctly?
The Mugen Man, yeah.
Mugen. Tell us about the story. What's the idea behind this?
So this is a story that it's a 148-page graphic novel. The idea behind it was so I had read it was a Grant Morrison book that was called Nameless, and there's some aspects of that take place within a dream, and so that kind of got my wheels turning, and I thought, what if an entire book was about just people lucid dreaming? But of course, when you look at that, you think, oh well, if it's a dream, then there are no stakes. And so I definitely came up with a scenario in which that was not the case. So the story focuses around a lucid dreamer who, her name is Crystal. Crystal Lucid. It's very clever on my part, right? She has, no pun intended, big dreams of being a powerful dreamer. And dreamers in this world are people who are lucid dreamers and can take control of the dreamscape. And in this story, the dreamscape is actually the collective subconscious of humanity, where everything that is will be. There are tulpas, there are like these thought forms and things like that. But what the story really focuses around is grief and what grief can do to you if left unchecked.
Okay, cool. So quite heavy.
A little heavy. It is. It's heavy, but I also try to have fun with it. Obviously, I mean, the whole thing takes place within the dreamscape. With the main characters are lucid dreamers. They get mixed up with some very powerful dream beings. So there is a lot of heaviness to it, I will admit, but I tried to have fun with it.
You don't need to apologize. I love a good, serious story. You know, I think the modern comic either feels to me like it's either cartoony and comedy, or serious, and the two shall never meet. I don't mind comedy. I don't mind that at all. I'm a huge Calvin and Hobbes fan, as I've said many times. But sometimes, you know, I'm getting on in my years. Nice of you not to notice. So I'm getting on in my years. So sometimes I want something a little bit more substance to it.
Yes. Hey man, I'm getting up there myself, so you know.
Yeah, dude, I'm looking down. It's like, hey, yeah. All right, okay. So dreams are funny things. We all have them. The idea that we've all been unsettled by dreams. That's kind of, you know, you'll think I'm making this up, but no words of a lie. The other night, this week, a little bit of backstory. I snore like a trooper, and I had decided this one particular night I was sleeping in our spare bedroom so my wife could get some sleep, and I get woken up from my dream about my mother to hear her having a nightmare about her mother. I'm man. What the hell's going on? And I'm like looking around thinking, I'm lying there after I was like settled back down, I'm lying back in bed, I'm looking around thinking, is there somebody just messing with our heads? what's going on, you know. So I mean, it's fascinating because I mean, I suppose when you're dealing with a dreamscape, you can go anywhere.
Pretty much, yeah. There are some rules that are in place, whether they are falsely put there or not. That kind of unfolds in the scope of the story. But
Is one of them, don't get them wet, don't feed them after midnight, and don't express them.
yeah, that's how you get dream gremlins, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, man, there is, and that's kind of what when I say that I tried to have as much fun with it as I could. The dreamscape in this is very much a place where you are only limited by what you are able to imagine and will into existence. Very, in that regard, very Green Lantern-esque, the way that these dreamers control the dreamscape. I didn't really draw that parallel until just now when I put it into those exact words. But yeah, I mean,
inspiration from, damn it.
Now, I've given away the ghost. But yeah, yeah. So there is so again, Crystal, she sets out to be the most powerful dreamer in the dreamscape, and in order to do that, she wants to learn from a dreamer who is known for his legendary control of the dream, and that is the Mugen Man. What she doesn't know is what it cost him to have that power. And so and the more I describe it, the more it's like, it's a really heavy book in a lot of ways.
It is and it isn't. I mean, all right, okay. First of all, let's talk about this. This is personal goals for Crystal and for all of us that can be pretty deep. We're talking about grief. Grief is one of those things. You don't get 5 stages of happiness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't get 5 stages of well-being or 5 stages of well done. Your team's won the Super Bowl. That doesn't happen, especially if you're this Dolphin fan. Anyway, what have I said?
Don't tell me. No. I'm a huge NFL fan, so the Dolphins. Man, what a potentially feel-good story every year you guys are.
Yeah. Who's your team?
Packers. Always been the Packers.
Oh man!
Don't kick me off the show, please.
No, my wife bought me a Brett Favre autobiography called Gunslinger. Interesting read, very interesting read. Yeah. Who would you take, Rodgers over Favre or Favre over Rodgers?
Are we talking personally or on the field? Because I almost wouldn't take either one of them personally. Yeah. Man, honestly, peak Rodgers is hard to beat, but because with Favre, man, because Favre was such a gunslinger, as the name of the book, that there was always that chance that he was just going to throw a pick at a critical moment, and it cost him so many times. Rodgers was much more controlled.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go with Rodgers.
Yeah, I'd have to go with it. I think Favre did more with less.
I think so too. Yes.
It's probably be a fair assessment, but I think if you want consistency, it's got to be Rodgers.
Yeah.
That said, as a Dolphins fan, I'm really sorry, Aaron, that you hurt your ankle and you couldn't play for the whole season. I'm really sorry as a Dolphins fan that happened to you.
Man, I feel bad for him. I know that's not the end or not the year that he wanted to have, but so many great memes came out of it.
True. Anyway, back to heavy stuff. All right. Yep. So grief, there's 5 stages of grief, right? So, if you're trying to talk about grief, you've got to recognize those kind of in your transition. I think and we'll have a look at the book after the break. I think you've done a great job, if I'm honest, of kind of diluting the seriousness with some of the characters that kick around the place. For example, the bartender and how you get past the bartender. Absolutely. I started reading this book and I'm like, what's going on? And then they did something. I was like, you know what? My cat would do that. That's my cat. And then even when she meets the Mugen Man, I'm not going to say Constantine-like, but there's an air of stubbornness, aweriness. I know what's best. I don't need you kind of young pups coming in and stealing my thunder. that kind of helps loosen up some of those heavy visuals. I'm not gonna. There's a scene in there, and I'll talk to you off show because I don't want to spoil it for everyone. But when I came across it, I was like, "Oh my god, what's coming on? What's going on here?" And I got really kind of like, oh. But honestly, it dealt with it with such a plum, and he actually used it to kind of move the story and create another sense of that loss or that risk that's been in the dreamscape, that I just had to sit back and go, wow, that was well played, my friend, well played. So thank you for that. And I'd love to tell you what is on the show so everyone can go, but if I do that, I'll spoil something. So I'm not going to do that because I want you to go out and buy the book.
Yes, please, back the Kickstarter, please.
We'll get a look at that as well in a little bit. So what got you into comics in the first place, Billy?
So I actually have been reading comics since I was, oh gosh, man, like 10, 11 years old.
See, this is when you young pups, you say things like, "Oh, I've been a Star Wars fan for years. I love the Force Awakens. It's my favorite first Star Wars movie."
Oh yeah,
like,
no. So it actually started with the X-Men animated series. I was the prime demographic for that. I was, let's see, that came out in '92, and I was 8 years old in 1992. So it was just the perfect moment, and it just. The way that I put it to people is I watched a cartoon when I was 8 years old that defined my interests for the rest of my life.
And so, funny, that's coming back around, isn't it? Because the amount of people who were talking to me about the X-Men, because X-Men 97.
X-Men 97.
Don't spoil.
I'm not going to spoil it. You got to watch it. It's so good.
Episode 6 tonight when I'm done here. So
I haven't watched it yet either. So
if I talk fast, it's because I'm going. I'm joking. But so many people are getting more, especially in comics-wise, the Krakoan things coming to an end.
Thankfully.
I'm with you on that, my friend. Started off with so many great ideas, and then just got stuck in the mud.
House of X and Powers of 10 was so good, and there was so much potential that came out of that, and then it just turned into geopolitical slog, and it lost me almost immediately. It was. I've never turned around on a series as quickly as I did Hickman's X-Men.
It's I seem to read the same issue every time.
Yeah, that was the problem.
I'd be like, what? Anyway.
And you get into my influences, so Grant Morrison's new X-Men run was, to me, like, other than Joss Whedon's astonishing X-Men run, like Grant Morrison's new X-Men run is kind of where my headcanon for the X-Men ends. There's not been that much that's happened since then that I've really enjoyed. And like, I love the Invisibles. I love Doom Patrol. I have almost every Doom Patrol comic that's ever been published. Going all the way back to the 60s in My Greatest Adventure. I've got some of those too.
Cool.
And so that's the kind of weird stuff that I've gotten into over time. And I love esoteric topics. So I spend a lot of time on YouTube. Like this morning on my way to work, it was I was watching a video essay about as above, so below. And what it actually means and how to apply that to your everyday. I'm into weird stuff, man.
Okay, fine. So is Grant Morrison your kind of go-to kind of that's where you kind of pitch your tent in that kind of, because I mean I like some of Grant Morrison's stuff, and that's exactly where that's my line. I like some of it. I can't get into all of it, but some of it's really great, and I really enjoy it, and some of it, even with some of the mainstream stuff, just doesn't work for me. I agree with you. I think his X-Men run, I think, gets maligned because of how it ended.
Well, and I think the ending is kind of ruined by what came after it, because it was almost immediately retconned. And I think if they'd let that ending stand for at least a year before they undid it, I think it would have had more impact. But it was immediately he was gone, and they just said, nope, none of that happened. That wasn't who you thought it was.
Bobby Ewing woke up from the shower. It's funny because back then when you watch the X-Men, the other show everyone was watching was Batman the Animated Series. So
yes,
you're either one or the other. Very, very strange. So Grant Morrison, Are you a fan of all this stuff, or do you find the more outlandish stuff is better than, say, Animal Man?
So I have not read everything, but
Uh-huh.
most of his stuff that I've read, I have really enjoyed. Now, there are exceptions to that. I didn't think his run on the Authority, what little of it we got, was what the team needed or what the book really needed. I felt like it was kind of a bad direction, so wasn't disappointed when it never came out and finished. Like the Filth, not really my thing, but when Grant Morrison gets to do what Grant Morrison really wants to do, and he gets to play in those spaces like he did with Doom Patrol and like he did with the Invisibles, that I'll take it every day, all day of the week. Like that is peak comics to me.
Cool. So not a cape and cowl kind of guy anymore.
Not anymore, man. Like now, really, the only artist or the only writer that really is putting out a lot of books right now that I could claim to be following is James Tynion.
That's
Love Department of Truth. Love Nice House on the Lake.
Great book.
Yeah. So yeah.
Let me ask you a question then from about the creative process before we take a break. It's not an original question, so apologies. I do ask this of all the writer artists that come on the show. Which is easier, writing or art? How does it work for you? Do you get like an image in your head like a dreamer, per se, and then you fit around the story around that, or do you kind of have the story and then match the art, or is it a completely holistic approach where the two sort of dovetail lovely?
So for me, and it depends. So on something like this, when I started creating Mugen Man, I really didn't know how far it was going to go. I'd been working on another series that I just needed to take a break from. I was using Mugen Man as kind of a way to refine the style that I was working in at the time, because I have multiple styles that I work in, and so what Mugen Man
you have that for sure.
Yeah, but so Mugen Man is representative of that more realistic, like typical style, and so I was really trying to pin that down so I could keep working on the other book, and then it just ballooned, and before I knew it, I had 148 pages of story. It very much like it just kind of flowed out. Like there was not. I hate to like. There wasn't even really an outline for this story. I very much figured it out as I went.
So let me get this right. Great writer, great artist, piss poor editor.
No comment. Well, and so I have a buddy who I bounce most of my stuff off of just to make sure that I'm staying in the right lane on some of these things. But yeah. Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right, probably. But yeah, so this very much was like a free-form creative process, as I was kind of the visuals were informing the story as much as the story was informing the visuals. Now, the book that I'm working on now, I started more with a concept, and then I developed a theme, and then I kind of started to define characters around the theme. So it's been much more traditional. And now that I've kind of got all that in place, I've started working on the artwork. But with this, it very much was a holistic approach. All 148 pages kind of flowed at the same time. So
do you feel that helped give the book its sense of off the rack kind of weirdness, the fact that you were getting as much out of it as the reader is?
Yeah, I think it really helped capture the chaotic nature of the dreamscape that I wanted to get. I don't know if that was really intentional as much as it was a byproduct of the creative process that I went through. But yeah, I think it definitely contributed to how the overall vibe of the book felt.
I think I think you do yourself a little bit of a disservice there. I think that if it is a byproduct, it's a great one, because you got to think you're talking about a realm of which there's no rhyme or reason, and if you've come into this from a story point of view where there is no true full structure, then you're not going to get tied down in the little details that can kind of bog down a book, and you're just going to kind of just go with the flow, which is essentially what you have to do in a dream anyway, unless you're like super lucid and can control everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great way of kind of you know what? The only way to demonstrate the chaos is to live the chaos. You can't skip chaos, right?
I definitely lived the chaos with this book. I will, dude. If you want to start having some really weird dreams, start writing a book that takes place in dreams where you're constantly thinking about it. Dude, I had the strangest dreams while I was making this book. It was really weird.
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'll tell you a quick story before we take a break. I read a book by Michael Connolly, a novel. It was called The Poet. It's about a serial killer. I'd read a couple of Michael Connolly books before. I thought, yeah, he's fine. But this book's about a serial killer, and it must be like 400 pages long. I started reading it on a Sunday night, and from Sunday to Wednesday, I was having absolutely the worst nightmares. It got to Thursday night. I was like, right, enough. I've got 220 pages of this book to go. I'm going to finish it tonight, so I'll find out if they get the bad guy, so I can get some sleep. 3:30 in the morning, I'm like this.
Yes. What you've just described was the first time I ever read Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun. It was very much that. Yes, so I can relate definitely.
I've got to get to this book. I cannot have my mind just wandering about serial killers and whatnot. It's fine. Right, we're going to take a look at the book when we come back. We're going to take a look at your Kickstarter video. Time for a break for one of our other shows. I know you people can't believe it, but the Definitive Crusade that recently celebrated its 8-year anniversary, go check out the pod, there was a cake and everything, is actually coming up to 200 episodes. 200 episodes talk about DC Comics. I didn't know there was 200 comics in there that were interesting. Who'd have thunk it? I love DC, what can I say? Where's my advert? There it is. So here we go. Here's the advert for the Definitive Crusade. There you have it, the Definitive Crusade for all you DC fans out there. The guys have just had a look at some really weird stuff and getting ready for the big House of Brainiac storyline over in the Superman books. There you go. Right, enough about them. Enough about the riffraff. Let's check it out. This is the trailer that's on your Kickstarter page, which we'll have a look at in a little while. We'll also have a look at some art. So this is the visual trailer for the Mugen Man. Mugen Man, even. Mugen Man. I'm British. I get it wrong all the time. Here we go.
You're good.
Wow. That's impressive. The music was quite scary. Where'd you get that from?
I created that, actually.
That's you. It's like somebody's attacked a video game and it's gone nuts.
That's yeah. So that was yeah. I was going for that like 80s like synth wave or retro wave kind of vibe. So
it works. We saw some of the characters in there in the book. Where shall we go? Well, should we have a look at the book? Some of the pages that you sent over. Is that all right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool. Let's have a look then, so people can see what they're getting. It's using it as our backdrop for the moment. There we go. Oh man, that is gonna wake up with one hell of a headache. I know that for sure. Black and white. It seems a lot of people are going black and white at the moment. Why is this? Is it just a cost thing, or is it just to help the evocativeness of the book?
Well, so what I really wanted here was to I wanted to play with using a straight black and white palette, basically. I had worked with grayscale on some of my other books, but I really wanted this to be yeah, get past that page. Don't let that be on YouTube. I really wanted this to be stark black and whites, and there are some grayscales that end up getting mixed in there, but I was really going for as much stark black and white as I could. And it's what I really want is just for it to be striking, honestly.
It's I'm going to give you a bit of a. I don't know if you think of this as a compliment. It's meant as a compliment, so please.
Okay.
I thought some of the faces of the characters, art-wise, remind me a lot of Barry Windsor Smith.
Oh wow! Okay.
The kind of like the longness of them.
Yeah, dude, I'll take a Barry Windsor Smith comparison as a compliment every day of my life.
There you go. So it's just what, especially later on in the book when there's a lot more interaction going on. So this is the bartender we were talking about earlier. It's like now you know that things have gone a little bit wonky because you're just like, what's going on there?
So it's kind of funny. I'm not spoiling anything by revealing this. The inspiration for this character. So there is I forget if it's somewhere, I think, in the United Kingdom. I can't remember if it's Wales or if it's Scotland or if it was in England. I don't remember. But there was this story of this family who had a talking mongoose ghost that was haunting their house. And it was Jeff the mongoose. And so this, I mean, and it was like this years-long thing, and like this thing, it would haunt their house, but it would talk to them. It was like this character. It was like a local character that all these people would come and they'd want to interact with Jeff, the talking mongoose. And I listened to a podcast about this, and it was actually his last podcast on the left. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
I don't follow anyone that's not us, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Oh, okay. But they do a lot of this weird esoteric stuff. I mean, that's what their podcast is all about. And one of the things that was talked about is like hypotheses of what this could be is like, oh, well, maybe Jeff is some kind of tulpa, which is like a thought form that the family somehow collectively created from their subconscious.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have tulpas be in this story, and I was like, I'm going to put Jeff the talking mongoose in this story.
So if everyone wants to know, it's from the Isle of Man.
Isle of Man, that's right. Yep.
Cool. So
I would have never come back around to guessing that was where that story was. So thank you for looking it up.
Don't tell anyone. Other search engines are available. What am I saying? Google don't pay for me for anything. I can do what I like. And she batters her way in, and then that starts the trippiness, right?
Yeah. So we go. It pretty much. The book never gives you a chance to really settle into any one scene or one.
That's true.
Or one environment before you end up in going through some weird trip to end up in another scene or another environment. And, the idea there being like a lot of these things are being completely fabricated by the people in the dreamscape. So, of course, logic and reason don't really matter. So you can open a door and end up in an ancient Tibetan temple when you walk through the bar back door in a bar, and that's, which is where she goes from there. That's, I do. Yeah. Right. Of course, she also walks through a swarm of spirals and what are they called? I can't remember what they're called. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of visual elements that are consistent throughout the book. But yeah, and that's where you start to see in between the lines of the dream are those scenes where you get these like fractal images. And what it's meant to represent is, so when I looked like I researched all of this, when you start to fall asleep, a lot of people say that they start seeing like patterns in their vision, or they start seeing like prisms and shapes and things like that.
Like after images.
Yeah. And so, and it's almost like they take on like a geometric pattern. And so when I was reading through that, I was like, well, what if that geometric pattern was kind of the actual structure of the dream that you have to that then gets formed into whatever you actually interact with in your dream. So when you see that kind of stuff throughout the book, you're seeing past the dream, basically.
Cool. Excellent. There's other questions I want to ask about dreaming, but I'm wary that I don't want to go too far, so I'm just going to leave it there. For the time being.
Okay.
We'll have a look at your Kickstarter. Here we go. It's in Brit pounds because I'm in England. Let's change it up. So you only asked for $500, and you're already at 357.
Yes.
That's pretty good going. 11 days to go at the time of recording. So you're pretty much. Are you happy with that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if I could have funded in 48 hours, that would have been great. But yeah, I ran a shorter campaign. This is not a full 30-day campaign. But for me, the work is done. The book is already at the printer. It's not so much about trying to bring this project to life, because I know, a lot of Kickstarters out there, there's like, hey, we've got this idea, this is what we're going to do, we've got some concept art, we've got maybe like 6 pages of the book done. I don't work that way. By the time something hits Kickstarter, I've already finished it. It's done.
You need to go work for the big two.
Right. So I set my goals relatively low, just enough to cover the printing cost of what it would require, because I just want the book out there, man. Like I'm not crazy enough to think that I'm ever going to get rich doing this. So it's more important for me that the book fund rather than I set like $100,000 goal or something crazy,
Perfect. Let's have a look at some of the rewards you can get. So the hypnagogic.
Hypnagogic. So that is the state in which you are falling asleep, but you're not quite asleep yet. And that is actually what I was talking about earlier. When you start seeing fractals, that's the state of sleep where you start to see those fractals, or where people report seeing them.
I find that element where it's kind of where you kind of feel like outside your body a little bit. Your body's really heavy and you're not. I like that.
Yeah, no,
it takes a while to get there. So $8 gets you the PDF. Billy, important to have a PDF copy?
As far as, is it important to have one as well as the physical?
Sorry, what I meant to say, I apologize. Is it important to you as a creator to produce a PDF copy?
Well, so what I want to do with a PDF copy, I always include it in my Kickstarters, and the only reason I do is because, one, I do have some people that back my campaigns that are overseas, and sometimes it's just cost prohibitive to try to get a physical copy over to them.
True that.
The other thing is, it's a 148-page graphic novel, so it carries a bit of a price tag on it, and
I don't think $8 is bad for 148 pages.
Yeah, so
I don't think $10 is particularly bad either.
Well, no, what I mean is the physical copy is $15 plus shipping. And so when the lowest physical tier that I can offer is $15, I want to make sure that anybody who's like, well, I don't know you, I don't know your work. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Get in for $8 and then you'll get the book. You can read it. If you like it and you want to check out what I do next, hop in on the physical, or if you want to buy the physical, I'll have it for sale. So yeah, I like to have that tier there just for the new people who have to have things proven to them, which is totally understandable, and then for the overseas people.
I think the $15 the book, the hardcover, the actual physical is your most popular one. So that tells you something about the quality. And for anyone who's watching and thinking, "What really?" The thing is, I've seen the whole PDF. I've seen it. I've got it as a review copy, and it's fantastic. So,
thank you.
if that I can confirm that it's done and ready to go.
Yeah, it is. Cool. I am expecting the proof from the printers pretty much any day now. So,
I wasn't going to talk about this. I was going to leave it, but it's on your preview pages. But when babies get involved, I kind of get a little bit squeamish. I don't know what it is. I'm like, oh, really? But then when you turn them around, and that's what you're faced with, I was like, what? And then just the fact that now they have to protect it adds that level of that risk that we were talking about before. I think that the introduction of that character, this character here, is just absolutely totally turned the tone of the book 180 degrees, adding some level of validity to things as they progress.
So the only reason that it presents, so a lot of this is representative as well. So what you don't get in this 6-page preview is in the scene right before that, Mugen Man has, so there's some things that are happening.
Don't spoil everything. It's fine.
And so he crafts the dream around them into a hospital room, because this baby, is what he's been looking for, and this is the quest, quote unquote, that Crystal kind of drops herself into unintentionally, because the dream in this localized area has taken on the form of a hospital room, and it's a woman in labor because she's giving birth to this thing. It presents itself as a baby, but once the context of the dream changes, the visualization of the baby also changes.
Perfect. And that's what I was saying. So it kind of, the inclusion of it as a baby, I'm like, oh, what? And then that kind of makes me feel a bit uneasy for my own personal reasons. But then you deal with it so well. And that's what I'm saying. It's just, tip my hat.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to have to, honestly, like, I don't like putting babies in stories as characters, which is one, because they're more of a prop than they are a character, and that doesn't have a lot of value to me, to the story. Yeah. And you look at the way like The Walking Dead handles babies in that series, and it's just like, this is why I don't want to put babies in, like, that's a prime example of why I'm not going to do it. But yeah, I was really just, I was playing with the motifs of the dream taking on the structure that it's taking. So
perfect. No, it works really well. Did really well. Absolutely avoided a pitfall for sure.
Yes.
Well done. Before we have a look at the banners, you are a hugely successful Kickstarter in your own right. How many Kickstarters have you had now?
So I have personally had 3, or this is my third campaign that I'm running. I've also been involved in other campaigns that have been run under other accounts. So if you look at the number of campaigns that I've run, it's not indicative of everything that I've done. So me and a buddy of mine, I did the writing and he did the artwork for it was originally a one-shot called The Body. And basically the concept behind that was, I just consumed all of this UFO conspiracy theory lore and started piecing it together so that it could actually make a coherent overall backdrop.
Okay.
And then I started writing stories that take place in that world. We have a scripted second version of that my buddy, he's finishing up a book that he's running on his own called Incision right now. He's on the second issue. Once that's done, I think we're going to go back to The Body and do a second one.
Cool.
I've also done some anthology work. We had an anthology that came out. It was called Superposition. It was me and a couple of friends that we just had some extra ideas, honestly, laying around. It was like, let's just take these things and let's package them up and we can put them out there. I mean, there's not enough here to sell on its own, but there's definitely enough here to sell as part of an anthology. So
anthologies have a charm. I love a good anthology for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
And of course, I've been fortunate enough to sync up with lesser known comics, and that's been an exciting experience getting pulled into their creative collective and meeting all those guys. There's some really talented guys. And Mark, I don't know if you know Mark from LKC, but he's a really great guy.
I probably do. I might do. I see so many people.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. People don't watch for me, I can tell you that. Billy, give us your 60-second elevator pitch why people should be checking out The Mugen Man.
All right, The
I
Mugen Man.
To get it right sooner or later.
Oh, you're good, dude. Nobody pronounces it right the first time that I've heard. So Mugen Man is a 148-page graphic novel that deals with the lust for power, the power of grief, and the collective unconscious of the human experience.
Whoa. Short and sweet. Excellent.
There you go.
If you are interested in the Kickstarter, and you should be, go check it out. Head over to this link. I'll put it in the blurb below. Yes, I know Kickstarter links are long. Can I do anything about it? No, I can't. But you know how it works. You go to Kickstarter, you type The Mugen Man, and guess what will happen?
It'll be there. It's definitely there.
Fine. If, however, that's a little bit complicated, you can always head over to Instagram at scribbly_comics, and there will be plenty of links and hints on how to get involved in the project over there.
Absolutely. I welcome you all into my Instagram world, I guess. I don't know. That got away from me immediately.
Yeah. I was like, where's he going with this? It's like, oh my God.
It's going to get weird. Oh
no. Oh my God. He's singing. That's how crazy it's got. Yes, it is. Billy, you've been an absolute star. Thank you so much for sending the book over. It's a great idea. Love the book.
Thank you.
The ideas in there, the art, the kind of, we saw the baby, there's other things going on, some mishmash of different things, of characters and prisms and triangles for heads and all sorts of crazy crap. And it makes me go, what's going on? I'm not quite sure. But it was a great read. So thank you so much for spending the time and bringing this to our attention. I really do appreciate you, man.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you bringing me on and giving me a chance to talk about it. So
thanks a lot.
My
friend. Anytime. Cool. That's it for another show. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows. You saw the trailer for it earlier, The Definitive Crusade. And if, like Billy and me, you like the X-Men 97, don't forget to check out the No Price podcast for all you Marvel fans, MCU fans, and I'm sure we'll be talking about a certain two-parter on the aforementioned cartoon show. It's all right. And if you like your comics of a certain age, don't forget to check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. There you go. Interestingly enough, the recent show, they did a Valiant special on Twitter today. Valiant have announced they're bringing back a universe. The Old Timers are ahead of their time. What can I say?
They're bringing the Valiant universe back for a fifth time. Is that what they're doing?
It's all allegedly.
Yeah, hey, I'm here for it. I was into it the second or third time they did it. So let's see what they got.
I'm not saying I'm an old timer and I was there for the first time, but I
was. I think I was a little young. I'll be honest.
Fair shout. Exo's the one to go for every time. All right, Billy, you've been an absolute star. As I said, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And as always, I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. It's that time. See you next time. Adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.